Empower 11, the best of its kind in a highly transformative time. Are you empowered? Ready to turn your life up to 11? Awaken the life of who you are on the inside to match the life you were meant to live on the outside. Empower 11. Now is your time.
Empower 11 Radio. Greetings and welcome to Empower 11 Radio. This is the live 1-hour show that's brought to you every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. You are either listening to us live on Spreaker, which is, you can either listen to it on the website, the Spreaker website. You can download the app to your iPhone or Android phone, which is a cool way to listen to it. Or you're listening to us on our podcast, because these shows are immediately recorded and uploaded to iTunes as a podcast, so you can listen to them at your convenience. For more info, you can go to empower11.com. We're in the process of updating the website so that not only will you be able to check out all the radio shows, listen to all the radio shows, download all the radio shows, but actually read or download the actual transcripts of the shows. So that's kind of a cool thing that we're adding to the site, so make sure you check it out. And also, check us out on facebook.com/Empower11. It's Empower and then the number 11. Make sure you like, and you can keep updated on everything that's going on with Empower 11. And we always encourage you to send your feedback, questions, comments to info@empower11.com. That's info@empower11.com. We're coming to you, as I said, live from Santa Barbara County. And today is a nice sunny day. However, it is a little cool. I am Jack Voorhees, and I am sitting next to the wonderfully talented, beautiful woman that I share my life with, and that is an honor, Ann Ribley.
Hello there, Jack Voorhees. Happy to be doing the show with you. You are an awesome co-host. You are a great partner as well, and your brilliance, compassion, business genius, all of those strokes of magnificence I get to share in, and I love doing the show with you.
Is that all you got?
I know you
Can you give me a little more than that? No.
I know you should see how when he's introduced me, the way he even looks at me when he does it. I feel pretty lucky and blissed. I love the word blissed because it's kind of like bliss and blessed mixed together.
I never thought of it that way.
Well, that's my experience doing the show with you, doing my life with you, and all the lucky things I get to do with you there, Jack Voorhees. You're pretty awesome.
So today's show is a conversation about what are the messages that you carry with you. And this is very important. It really kind of defines who we are,
our life,
how we think, how we think about ourselves, the kind of self-dialogue that we have,
our experiences.
Yes, it's about the experiences of the past and what may have happened in the past that is a message that we kind of grabbed onto and we carry with us still.
I just want to take a moment to just embrace the power of reflecting in our lives. What is the message we carry with us? And the reason why it's so powerful just to take this moment and reflect is I've been around the self-improvement movement my whole life, and I've heard many great statements, many great affirmations. I've been a part of that movement, heard many of the best authors and speakers in this arena of self-improvement. And the message you carry with you, it came from this idea, which is built into now the 11 pillars of the Empower 11 whole program that we've built on, came from an inspirational talk that Jack was giving. And he said the question, what is the message you carry with you? And afterwards I said to him, that was really powerful, because that takes the way that we're speaking either internally or externally to ourselves, and it creates a sense of ownership to it. What is that message you're carrying with you? Because it's what you own. And do you want that? Or what is empowering you? And so that was basically the birth of this aspect of Empower 11, is what is the message you carry with you. This topic is so extensive and deep and possible in its range to heal and to reorientate us that it's going to be a 2-part series.
So if you had to describe yourself and who you are, how accurate would that be? I mean, if you really dug deep into, writing down, my name is Jack Voorhees, I am, and then I just started filling in the blanks. It would be all the messages that I carry with me of who I am. And some of those messages are completely false. There are things that are brought up from, whatever kind of experience that I may have had in the past and that I use to influence my now.
Well, then let's just talk about, where do messages come from? They come from our cultural conditioning. They come from parents. They come from teachers. They come from the media. They may come from a religious context that we've been raised in. I mean, they come from these highly influential experiences, teachers, mentors, authority figures that have surrounded our lives.
Many people, when they're starting off on something, a new type of interest or what have you, they're not instantly experts at it. There's some things that just, I think, we come into very naturally, and we just, we show some kind of jewel or shine. We shine in a certain area just naturally, but usually these areas need to be developed. And if we don't come out and hit it out of the park right away, we think that we can't play baseball, or we're not good at baseball because we didn't hit a home run, or we didn't hit it out of the park on the very first try.
Well, you've said this at different times, Jack, about with your son, that when, growing up, you've seen it, things come so easy. And then the first time that he ran into where it didn't come easy. What was that story that you were...
Well, yeah, my son was on the honor roll, like every time he hit honor roll. And there was a year where he had just started in a new school, in a new grade, and it was the first semester, the first grading period, and we went to the parent-teacher conferences, and he had just missed getting on honor roll just by a hair. And I remember his homeroom teacher saying to me, let me go talk to that teacher, because, I'm sure, changing it from a C+ to a B-, would be an easy thing. And I would say, yeah, I would really appreciate that. That would be great. Later, unbeknownst to me, my ex-wife called the teacher and said, no, if he didn't earn the B-, he doesn't deserve to have it. And he doesn't deserve to be on honor roll. And so he didn't get honor roll, and from that point forward,
he carried a message that he's not an honor roll student, right?
Yeah. So he wasn't he wasn't in honor roll for years after that. Let's see, that was 6th grade, I believe, and he didn't get back on track till 10th grade. I mean, we finally got him into a private school where he is now in national honors. But by carrying that message with him, he was, it severely hindered him. And I think that happens so much. I mean, you take a kid to gymnastics, and the other kids have been doing gymnastics longer than she has, and she goes out there and she doesn't do as well, even though she may be naturally gifted and she could go very far in gymnastics. But then she doesn't she doesn't do well, and she wants to quit, and she ends up quitting gymnastics, and because the other kids make fun of her or whatever, and then that's the message that she carried with her. A complete falsehood. Max is not a dumb kid. I mean, he was
highly brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, he was. The kids at a very young age, he's modifying Xboxes and doing all this stuff and charging kids $50 to do something with their Xboxes, which is a highly intelligent skill, and then he wasn't making honor roll.
Well, I want to talk a little bit because I think a lot of people would say, well, okay, he didn't make it. Why should he get this favor or get his grade changed? But that wasn't so much your point. It was the message he carried, and then he translated that to so many aspects of his life that if he couldn't hit it out of the park, basically, in any aspect, then why even bother?
Sure.
That was what you started working with him on, is that...
Right. I mean, it carried over into guitar lessons. It carried over into...
That was more my point, is
aspects.
that particular story, the message he adopted, then you had to work with him on, just because you're not going to hit a home run the first time you stand up, doesn't mean you don't get in the game with it.
Right. Doesn't mean you can't be a superstar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you look at Michael Jordan. He was cut from his high school. His high school basketball team, and later, Michael Jordan goes on to be just like a superstar athlete.
So there's the messages that are given to us from others. There's the message
that we've somehow owned.
Yeah,
that we took ownership of.
So we give them to ourselves. Somehow we take ownership of them. There's messages that we give to others. Mm-hmm. And then there's the interpreted messages that somehow we interpret a message that may not even be true. And we get this skewed sense of reality, or the skewed sense or distorted sense. I mean, this is very common. How many people hold on to a story and a message that was based on something that happened years ago, and it's remembered maybe differently, but to them it's true, but it could be really false.
Yeah, I mean, especially as when we're younger and more naive, we could take things in completely the wrong context and run with it. But also as we get older, we can do the same thing. I think this is a far more common occurrence than many would think. I think this happens quite a bit, that people take on things like somebody said something to us, and maybe they said something, it didn't even come out the way they intended to say it. Or maybe the inflection was on the wrong word, or what have you.
Well, we see this with texting a lot.
I
mean, texting and that kind of communication, it really...
Sure, especially with autocorrect. I mean, you see all these crazy...
But it really
messages.
gets misinterpreted, because people can get offended by a text message because there isn't even that inflection there. Or, or...
I can't believe that people have these arguments over text or email. I just think that is a really crazy way to communicate. Be very careful how you communicate in a text or a Facebook comment or what have you, because there's not that delivery. It's wherever people are at is how they're going to kind of interpret that, because You know, if somebody's having like a crazy day and then they look at something and they take it with the energy that they're already having with inside them and not the energy that was given when somebody sent this message.
That's really important. I just want to take a moment and just stop with that and just allow people to soak that in, because that lines up with that saying that Maya Angelou has, is that people are not going to remember necessarily what you say as much as they're going to remember how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. And so when we're exchanging these messages, like let's just say with texting or, you know, some sort of electronic means, then, and they're taking where they feel in that moment, they're not there to properly decipher what this message means. Mm-hmm. Now, even in our lives, when someone says something to us and maybe it was misinterpreted, and then we go and process it and it starts to make us feel a certain way, there's just so many ways it can get us skewed because of where we're at to receive this message.
Yeah, I mean, it can even be delivered perfectly, but if we're not receiving it, and sometimes, you know, messages shouldn't be received. Because, I mean, it's like not based in truth. I mean, if I would have stopped every time somebody called me crazy, you know, I mean, I think I did a video, and once in the video I said, I'm getting used to it. You know, everybody calls me crazy, I'm getting used to it. The thing is, I mean, it is those crazy ones. I mean, when I first was telling people about cell phones, and when I was getting into the cell phone business, people thought that I was absolutely out of my mind. I mean, it was like people thought I was crazy to even start a sign business. You know, everybody, all my friends and stuff were going and getting jobs at GM because that was like the ticket. You know, I was in Michigan, and everybody's like, they're working for GM, they're working for Ford, they're working for whatever, and that was the ticket there. And I went and I started a sign business, and people were like, signs? What do you mean signs? You know, and then when I was successful, they were like, oh, okay. And then when I sold that sign business, you know, when I left that and went into cell phones, people are like, I don't even like to answer the phone at home. Why would I ever carry one of those things? That's ridiculous. These things are not going to catch on. You know, people just... You know, people have trouble seeing the future, and, you know, none of us have this magic crystal ball where we can just see the future. We kind of go with what we feel in our gut, and, you know, some people are visionaries, and others are kind of like more in the status quo. And when people start going on, you know, following their hopes and their dreams, other people can kind of get in a place where they're like, they feel like, what is the word? They're not offended, but, you know,
envious. Are you trying to?
Well, you know, not quite envious, but, you know, they can feel like bad about themselves because they may be not going after their hopes and their dreams, and they see somebody else doing it, and they need to put out the message, you know, that says, hey, you can't do that. You can't, you know, this isn't going to work.
Well, that's where messages really become beliefs that we carry around. And then not only that, they become beliefs. Messages that we carry become beliefs that then we pass around. So the question is what is these messages, which are beliefs that we're passing around? Are they becoming mind viruses where they're spreading in a way that they're not creating necessarily an uplifting vibration to the world? And then there's the beliefs that get passed around that are sources of inspiration. And they help bring people in spirit into this higher vibration. I mean, that is what inspiration means.
Yeah, messages are powerful, and when, you know, I don't think we maybe view them as powerful as what they actually are. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, that's one that we hear a lot, right? That's a message that's out there. You can't
about change.
Yeah, and you can't,
about believing in people to even change.
Yeah, but I'm here to tell you that you can. You can teach an old dog new tricks. I've done it. I know that it's possible.
Yes.
And that change is possible, and it's never too late. And that is the truth. But we carry those messages, as truths. I mean, a lot of us will hold on to some kind of saying that's out there, or what have you.
Actually, it's more than just a saying that we're holding on to. It's a state of being. I mean, I want to talk about how messages really are energy that fuels and feeds our minds, our body, and each other. And so what are those messages that we're perpetuating that are actually real, alive energy? Messages, when we were talking about, creating this program, Jack, I was saying that messages are really codes of instructions, of imprint. Every piece of life has a code, has a message in it. And when it becomes activated, it becomes something. That seed becomes a tree. That message between a sperm and an egg becomes a human being. I mean, there's a message encoded. It's that pulse of life. It's that source of creation. It's a code of message. Mm-hmm. And
well, our thoughts are expressed in the message. Our thoughts are messages, and our thoughts can become things. Last night I was at a city council meeting, and they're proposing all these things. I was there to support a bike park that they want to build for
our community.
Yeah, a really cool bike park. So it started with one person's vision. And then it started carrying on and carrying forth, and it got momentum, got energy from other people, got the community, and there was probably 200 people there, supporting this thing, and volunteering and what have you. But it started off as a vision, and before that, there was one for a memorial for fallen soldiers that they're wanting to put forth. And they really had detailed vision about what this was to be. And they even had this mock-up thing that they played where they did a flyover, and and they showed like every detail of what's going to be here and what's going to be there, and even from the lines in between the concrete, like how that was, and it was so detailed that really wild how it started off with a single vision, a single thought,
which was
that
a
is
message.
A message.
Yes,
and then it started
to expand.
Right, and the clearer that they see this, the clearer that this message is, the more that it's likely to become a thing.
So now look at it in our lives. This is what I want to do, is what are those messages that we have surrounding who we are, with the body, with the mind, with the heart and soul of who we are?
It all ties together, because look at the placebo effect. Whenever they show these drug things, and they always did the study against the placebo, and the placebo people, they showed improvement too.
Yeah, because of the message that they carried, that it was going to help them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then others get false messages. People get diagnosed with something that is not necessarily the truth, that they really have that. It's they find out later that test results were not correct or whatever.
Well, that's the this is a story. This is a pretty old story, but it was in the very beginning when Deepak Chopra was taken off and talking about this body-mind connection and the eavesdropping in our body, eavesdropping in on the mind and the conversation. And it was the story about a colleague that he was a doctor alongside of him, and how they found on an x-ray this spot in his lungs. The whole thing proceeded to that he got diagnosed with a certain type of cancer, was told how much time he had to live, and that's exactly the message, the thing that became reality, and he lived it out and died. And then Deepak went back and said, well, let's go back and look at the previous x-rays, and this is a story in one of his books, and it was the exact same size, and it was the exact same spot that had been on his x-rays, but it was undiagnosed for years. And because he wasn't told this message, so it did not become the reality and thing to him.
Okay, so it's the same size, and then they tell him, you have, 6 months to live or whatever.
Years later, and it had been on years previous x-rays that just went unnoticed and undiagnosed.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's why Deepak says your body is always eavesdropping in.
Yeah.
On your conversation,
and
your message with yourself.
Why the message that you carry to your knee is always so kind and loving in your leg. Because, if you would have subscribed to the message that the doctors tell you that you shouldn't be able to walk, then, you wouldn't be able to walk. But you don't subscribe to that message.
Right. So therefore, not only do I walk, I'm highly active and functional.
And hot.
Well, what I want to talk...
And yummy-fied.
What I want to talk about is this place...
And you have a great body.
Thank you, Jack Voorhees. But I want to talk
That's the message that I'm giving you.
Oh, you're awesome. Okay, so let's talk about that message. I believe that
let's talk about the message about how hot you are.
I want to talk about the message that people take on and how they talk to their bodies, because I've actually found this to be true. That most people are really unloving with how they talk to their bodies. They don't like it. They critique their bodies. They talk about what they don't like. And my leg was injured when I was young, and I grew up, always being told by my parents that you are not your leg. You are that spark. You are that life energy inside your body. So somehow I didn't attach to whatever damage happened to my leg as a way to define me. And so because of it, what I've noticed is that, we're talking about how, I was told by the doctors, well, gosh, you shouldn't be walking on a knee like that, but I had never subscribed to that message, so therefore it's not my reality. However, what I did notice is that even though my leg could supposedly give me trouble, or it does at different times, I don't talk mean or unloving to it. I really talk like my knee tries hard for me. My leg tries hard for me. I don't talk about how when it's being stubborn, how it's being stubborn. I talk about how hard it tries for me. And I think this with people in their body, they don't embrace. And I look at this because I have a lot of beautiful young nieces, and they're all young adults, and they're all so hard on their body and how they look. And I think, God, if I talk to my leg the way you talk to your body, my knee would really have a hard time. I feel like my leg is good to me because I am good to my leg.
Yeah, and people always say, "Oh, my freaking back," and they that's the kind of message, that's kind of dialogue that they have with themselves and the way they talk about
or they don't like
their
the way,
bodies.
Or they don't like the way they look.
Right.
The way it feels, functions.
Yeah. When we were in the Dominican Republic, there was this gentleman that organizes people to come down to this one resort that we go to, and he was always saying that I bust my back for these people. I break, I'll break my back for these people, and I heard him say that a few times, and then I noticed when he and I were at the beginning of this big set of stairs to walk up this cliff to where the restaurant is, he was saying, "Oh, my back," and come to find out that he's had all these back surgeries and stuff, all these problems with his back, and I told him to, be careful about the way you talk.
The message
about
that you
back.
carry about your back. And he's like, he wasn't able to receive it. That's back to there's messages.
And these messages can be heavy, can be a heavy burden to carry with us. So lighten the load.
So looking at these messages that can become heavy resistance patterns in our lives, look at in relationships with money. I mean, that's a big one. A lot of the messages people have surrounding them and their experience and their relationship with money comes from something that's been passed on to them.
Right. Like rich people are mean, rich people are stuck up,
You can't make money doing what you love. Money doesn't grow on trees.
It doesn't? Wow. Well, what is up with those money trees? Isn't that where money comes from?
Yeah, it does. It's a form of paper. Now, I want to talk about relationships, though, because people have messages pertaining to relationships being hard, full of compromise.
Everybody knows that relationships are difficult and they require hard work.
Right. So that's the message a lot of people carry, and that's heavy.
Really? I don't have time to do that kind of hard work. I'll just stay with you.
Yes, and you know what it comes down to, Jack, is the message is you go, I feel like we're in a grown-up relationship.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, that's kind of that kind of energy. I mean, I watch people and I was in a relationship that it seemed like we got very childish. It was like, what are we arguing about? I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, and really arguing is kind of a childish behavior. It really isn't an adult, mature way to communicate.
And if all you got to do is hang out with some kids for a little bit, and you can find that out, especially siblings, because they will argue about the most ridiculous things and go back and forth.
Right. They'll say was not, was to, was not, was to so many times that they forgot what their was not, was toing about. Like, what are you guys arguing about? And they're like, what? Well, I don't know. He was wrong.
Yeah, so in our lives, I mean, I know we're playing it lightly, but it's a powerful, core, deep, generating, code, imprinting, fuel aspect of the energy of the center of activation of who we are is that message that we are carrying. And where do they come from? What are we doing about it? It becomes this collection of either stories or clutter or gossip or history. Mm-hmm. And so what is the message that we're carrying? And what do we want to own in this message? And what way are we perpetuating our message? Is it more gossip? Is it more of this disempowering history? Or are we coming into this aspect where we are... I was telling Jack, it's interesting when you look at like our collection of messages. They could be clutter. They could be clutter. No different than when you walk into someone's house and they're just throwing things here and throwing things there, and there's piles of this there and that, and there's just this unaware energy and all these blockages. Now think about it with our mouths, which are the expression pieces of our souls and our minds. And if we're just throwing around our messages like clutter without even awareness, and we're creating all these stagnation piles of belief, of blockages, of demeaning, back to this relationship thing, when you said it could get really childish. I remember very early on, Jack, you had said, we can get into these things in life in general where the sarcasm, this condensation, this demeaning of other people in these really flippant ways can become normal, where we can joke about someone's idiosyncrasies, or we can just do things in a way. And I remember you in the very beginning said, we will not play that game because it can really deteriorate a relationship really fast. And I can remember when you said that, Jack, and we've stuck to it.
Yeah, this little teasing and stuff that couples can have, especially when they bring it out in the public and stuff. I mean, it can really escalate into what was just kidding around, was just joking, all playfulness, what have you, can really turn into something, because the message that we're putting out is not positive, even if we both know it's not true, but we keep
or
saying,
we're lightheartedly joking about it, because it could be true.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem with messages. Sure. There is 50 shades of gray of how many ranges it can go from true to false to being misinterpreted.
Saying, even if it is true, or is not true,
Yeah.
rather, the energy is still being put out.
Right. I know a couple that it's crazy that if you just would ever sit at the dinner table with them, it's vocally with their messages, it's a clobber fest. They're seeing who can knock the other one down, and everybody laughs because it's so funny, but it's so sad.
Yeah, I just find that painful to be around.
Yeah.
I mean, I just really just would rather not be around that. It's just not empowering to hear other people banter with each other and stuff. You know, maybe there is a chuckle or two there, but it's not the golden way. You know, it's not. It doesn't have the beauty that relationship. You know, people. If you paired up with somebody, you say, "Hey, this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with," or whatever, or this is the person that I'm sharing all my nows with, then that should be honored. I mean, it should be celebrated daily. And I like that we do that. I mean, when we wake up, we kind of like celebrate each other. I think that's something that's pretty cool. So
I know.
You're awesome, man.
I love that about you, Jack, because you take the time to breathe it in, and that's, a lot of times I'm ready to jump out of bed, snap, crackle, pop, handle the day, and a lot of times he'll just reach over and just put his hand on my chest, which is a message of love and feeling, and just breathe in and say, I love you, and kind of like take the time to seep in these messages we want our days to be infused with. I mean, why is the message we carry so powerful, important? Why is it?
Well, I mean, it's that energy that we have inside of it. It's where we're coming from. We're either shining or we're dimming the lights as we walk into a room. And when you walk into a room, do you want the room to improve, get lighter, get more full of joy? Or do you want the room to go, frah, frah? And that's kind of... so some people you just love to be around because their energy is so awesome. Excuse me.
Well, so our messages are very powerful, and I love when we were putting the show together, Jack, you were throwing around some of these different cliches, which we're going to go more into, and what this really means and how we're getting it is, and on the part 2 of the show, but you had said, talk is not cheap. That saying...
It is not cheap, no.
So we pay a price. So why do we want to be aware of the messages that we are carrying? Because talk is not cheap. It has an expensive price tag on it with how it's paying off in the world around us.
Right. I mean, how many sayings do we have? How many messages do we have that are unempowering? I have this friend Jim. He's passed on now, but Jim was a bit heavy, and when he come to my house, and he came over a lot to visit and stuff, and he, in Michigan, you always got to take your shoes off at the door and stuff because they're usually dirty, muddy, snowy, whatever, right? So every time he'd go to put on his shoes, he'd bend over and say, "I hate myself," and it was like funny, that we laughed and everything. But that's not an empowering.
Well, he died young.
Place. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So it's like that perpetuated not a self-love, even though it seemed funny and seemed like a joke, but it was not a message that was empowering to him at all. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And talk is not cheap. Words are not cheap. They do have a lot of power and vibration. Remember when I was growing up, I had, there's been a couple sayings in my life that have had really major impact. And one was when I was growing up and I had all these multiple surgeries done. And one of them was when they were like doing this straightening of my leg where they broke it in several different places and they had to have my body so still for it to heal back properly that I was put in a body cast. And I was in 3rd grade at the time.
How when you say body cast, like Your arms are free?
No,
though?
yeah, my arms were free. It was all the way underneath my arms. So
Okay.
it was from underneath my shoulders all the way down to the tip of my toe.
Wow. Okay.
Inside. So, and it was 50 pounds, this body cast, after the surgery.
50 pounds. And how?
And I was in 3rd grade at the time, and I weighed 80 pounds.
So you weighed 80 pounds, so 50 pounds, I mean, that's only 30 pounds less than you weighed. That's quite a,
Yeah.
wow.
So they told my parents she's not going to be able to move. And that, you know, so my parents went and actually redecorated my room because I thought she's going to be stuck in this body cast in bed for 3 months, because I was in this body cast for 3 months. So when I got the surgery done, so my room was redone, but when I got the surgery done and I was in the hospital and I was just getting dismissed, what happened was they said, well, why don't we see if we can take her down and just try as an experiment to even see if we can teach her to walk in crutches, because they really thought it was going to be impossible to have me walk on crutches because of my body weight to the weight of the cast. So they go, well, let's just take her down to the physical therapy room and we'll just wing it before we dismiss her, you know, kind of thing, and just see. I know I was just this really mocked up, let's try it kind of thing. So I go down there. And my parents are there, and, you know, because they're picking, you know, they're going to take me home after getting dismissed from this surgery, take me home. And so they start like teaching me. And I remember it was so hard at first, you know, and because the body cast was so heavy. And my parents kept saying this mantra to me over and over again, this message. And when you take your steps, say, I can, I will, I must, I am. So I remember being in this body cast on this crutches, and as hard as it was, I remember saying, I can, I will, I must, I am. And I just kept saying, I can, I will, I must, I am. And now they're like, you know, at the end, I remember them like clapping because I had, you know, the physical therapist and stuff, because I was doing it. I was actually walking. They're like, okay, well, she might be a little more mobile, but this, you know, it's going to be hard. But like fast forward, I mean, that entire 3 months, I was like running with my brothers practically on my crutches in this body cast. It was hysterical because I never stayed in my room. I was not bedridden at all. And it was funny because I really believe that all happened because they did not think it was possible, but they's like, well, let's just give her a try. It would be a lot easier to get her to be able to move herself to the bathroom and back and all this stuff from the bed. Wow. But my parents started out, Ann, I can, I will, I must, I am. And that's what I kept saying. I remember that. And that message really stuck with me. I mean, it was but it was the power of that possibility at that time in my life that, wow, how transforming that was, and how we can defy whatever is the collective message at that time, which the collective message amongst all the doctors and the hospital staff is that I would not be able to be mobile on crutches.
Wow. Wow. That is an inspiring story, Ann. That's, you know, the truth is just so powerful. You know, I was thinking about the, you know, messages and way advertising. Excuse me. The way advertising is, it's always been like this kind of bombarding of messages.
That's why I feel like one of the important how-tos is mantras, and I want to get into that.
Well, you know, just like one I can think of is choosing mothers, choose Jif. So, if you want to be a good mom, you better choose Jif. But Jif isn't necessarily the best peanut butter out there.
Now because there's so much awareness has happened over even like with these hydrogenated oils and stuff. Now there's the natural Jif because they have to compete within that market, you know, even though, but that, these, okay.
Or, you know, Lucky Charms is part of a complete breakfast.
Yeah, that's a really old message now because a lot of people know that's not true.
Sure. But, you know, I mean, the thing is, though, these messages, they bombard you enough, you will take those on. And there is some truth to that. You hear something enough, you will start to believe it. So all these sayings, all these messages that are out there, we've heard it so many times that we start to believe it. We start to take on this. And that's a really unempowering place to come from.
Well, that's where I want to say about mantras, because I feel like what is the message you carry? How do you begin to change this message so it's a match? So we're becoming aware. We're not just, spewing messages out, spreading messages, even in our lives with ourselves, is start to, there's been a lot of awareness about making affirmations and statements and affirming a new state of being, which I totally agree with. And I think that what happens is when we want to affirm a new statement, a new message, that a lot of times it may feel incongruent because it's not as familiar to us. So I think the way to, or the how to, is to create mantras, which is the way to repeat it. Then we can energize the affirmation from a place that has the energy of truth, and we are in resonance with it. And when I was in that body cast, I can, I will, I must, I am. That was like in that moment, that was becoming the mantra. It was like an engine to fuel a message.
Yeah.
An affirmation. So I
because we can either be bombarded by other people's messages with TV, radio, whatever, advertisement, all that stuff, or we can get in the driver's seat and start creating our own messages and our own mantras. So you created your own mantra. Well, your parents helped you at the time create a mantra that was highly empowering to you.
And to now fast forward it as an adult, the other time that I had used a mantra that I feel totally created something miraculous to happen. And I look at this experience that I created another mantra at another time in my life where I felt really, I had no idea, where it felt as heavy as the body cast in relation to where I was at that time, was after I came out of my divorce. The idea of I wasn't going to throw down another 10 years in the wrong situation for myself, and that, getting in a relationship again, it all felt way too heavy for me to even think about.
I was right there with you. I was shared that sentiment.
And so what I did, my mind would go into this place of questioning and wanting to create messages that maybe weren't empowering, or it would get unsettled, or it would go into this place. And I created a mantra to settle my mind, to settle my being, to settle my heart, to settle my soul. And my message was, every time my mind wanted to think about the future and future love relationships, or even how I was going to go about any of this, I came up with a mantra, and I said, love would come to my home. And I would repeat it over and over again to myself. Every time my mind wanted to go to coming up with an answer, wanting to start a message in a dialogue inside of me, and I would settle. I was in command. I owned this message. I said, love will come to my home. Every time my mind wanted to go there. That was my mantra. And I said it over and over again. Every time I went there, love will come to my home. So I was speaking to my mind in these messages that were wanting to fire up in ways that maybe were not empowering. And so it was so interesting. Love did come to my home via Skype. And his name was Jack Voorhees as we started working together. But here's also what's interesting. When we did start working together, and this other energy that had sort of this love vibration to it started to emerge, I remember also having to be willing to open to receive it. When the message was coming back to me based on the message that mantra that I had. And so...
Yeah, I mean, I was sharing something similar. I mean... I was reconfiguring my life, going through a big life change, and love was last on my list. I mean, that I thought, I'm going to just concentrate on my hopes, my dreams, and leave this love stuff for later. But what I came to realize was if I lower the bar in any area of my life, I lower the bar in every area of my life. And it affects all the others. Everything's connected. And that was a bit of my mantra, was if I lower the bar in any area of my life, I'm going to lower the bar in every area of my life. It's going to affect everything. So I decided, oh, crap, I got to put love back on the list. So
you became open to wholeness for yourself.
Yes, so then I worked on clarity, for my message, my message of what I was, what I wanted in a person, to make sure that I didn't sell myself short, that I didn't get caught up in some emotional aspect and lose sight of what it is that I really wanted, really intended for my life.
I think today and this show, if you could just take this one aspect out and understand that what is the message I'm carrying, and if there's a message I want to change or there's a message that I want to empower in a different way, is to begin to create the mantras. I look at my life and I look at like the different times I've experienced a miracle. And I really feel this way. When I sit in this relationship that I have with you, Jack, I am in awe of how it transpired in this way that it just, love showed up to my home. And I didn't have to go looking for it. It was this mantra, but I did have to be open to receive it when it did show up. And here we are now. We've been together for 2.5 years, and every day it's this miraculous uncovering of something so magical and beautiful that I am in awe. I mean, I have experienced a miracle by believing in the mantra, love would come to my home. And it's funny, when we first met, or when we came together and we actually first met in the physical, because we had met through Skype and talking and connecting in a different kind of soulful way. And when you came, you brought me the flowers and you said, "Ann, love has come to your home." And it really has been the truth of that message that I carried at that time, which came from a mantra. Love would come to my home.
Oh, you're so sweet. You are sweet.
I want everyone to know that look at the messages that you're carrying, and what do you want to change, and what are the mantras you can begin right now.
Right, you can either have your own mantra, or you can have the world create one for you. You know, I mean, there's a mantra that does exist for you. These messages that you have, and you know, what do you want to bring to the forefront? Because you will, I mean, that's natural way. People will adapt, and people will adapt to messages that are being thrust upon them. They will start to own them. And, you know, I recently saw this, and, you know, when we had the election and we were voting on different things, and one of them was we actually wanted to know what was in our food.
Oh, an ingredient
and how our
proposition.
Yeah, and how our food was manufactured. We were going to require that on the label. No brainer, right? Why wouldn't you want to know that?
Yeah.
Well, the industry that was against this, that doesn't want us to know what's in our food and how our food is manufactured, they put out this huge advertising campaign. And I caught a couple of their commercials, and they were saying proposition whatever, that's just wrong. And that was their argument.
And they had millions of dollars behind that.
Right, and they kept
mantra.
Repeating it over and over. That's just wrong. That's not right. That's just wrong. And because you heard that over and over again, that's how people voted. They voted it down to not want to know what's in your food. Come on, right?
Well, I just had this happen this morning. Is my son CJ, who had made a 4.0 in honors rolls this last semester in school, he says to me this morning. Now, understand, he's only been back to school for 1 month now, because his is done in semesters, so there's only 2 semesters to the school year. So he's on now the second half. And he says to me this morning, "I don't think I'm going to be able to get a 4.0 this semester." He's only 1 month in it. And I go, "Why is that?" He goes, "Oh, because I've heard about this test that you have to take at the end of the semester, and everybody fails it." This is what he said to me. I go, "Just because that's the message that everybody is giving doesn't mean it has to be your message." He was already buying into this message that even kids who are in honors fail this test because it's so hard. And so it's back to what you said, Jack, is that the mantras are going out there.
Sure.
And either we're developing our own, which then becomes our message, or it's going to be thrust upon us, all these mantras, which will become our message we carry with us.
And we have to sift through this. I mean, there needs to be a point of reflection. There needs to be a stop and say, and ask yourself, is this truth? Is this not? And do I need to own this? Do I need to give it back?
Right.
those things, instead of just like absorbing all that is around us, and we're bombarded with messages now. I mean, we're being even during this radio show, I mean, my phone's been ringing voicemails. I'm sure that,
and we try to silence everything.
Yeah, there's all this stuff that I'm even not aware of because I shut it all down. I'm not aware of it, but people are messaging me on Facebook. People are text messaging me, voicemails, phone calls. All those things are still going on, and people have their own agendas, and they want to, pursue their own agendas. They want you to take on that kind of ownership of what they're putting out there. It's funny that one of the things that I've noticed that people seem to like about me is that I say it how it is, and I don't necessarily bend to other people's ways of doing things and whatnot.
You talk straight.
Yeah, and I'm just too lazy not to. I don't I want to spend all that energy, talking in riddles and all that stuff. I'm just not a small talk, and I don't know how the Jets did and whatever. I'm just, I just don't spend a lot of time on those things. But then the minute that I don't subscribe to whatever they're putting out, and I won't do what they want me to do, then I'm, on their list, I'm way down on their list. Yeah.
But I watch it circle back around, Jack, because then people come back to you because they want that straight talking, and how are you doing this again? Sometimes that's that place we got to let the cycles go through, is that when you start getting in that alignment with following that truthful message and that way you want to carry and interact in your life, sometimes it certain aspects may have that graceful step down. That's that mantra flow I have, that which supports me boldly steps forward, that which doesn't gracefully steps down. But it's funny how you'll see
that's a good one. You say that a couple times so that
because that was a mantra that I created too during that time when I was going through a lot of life changes. Is instead of having to think so hard about it, that became my message and my mantra that I carried, is that which supports me boldly steps forward, and that which doesn't gracefully steps down.
Right.
And so
gracefully steps down.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you talk about, Jack, is how there's a cycle that even sometimes people who maybe don't want to hear it right now, they'll come back around and have respect, or maybe not.
Sure.
If that's which supports you, will boldly step.
There's those that will, there's those that won't, and there's those that will never, and there's those that will someday down the road.
I love that, because I think, you've said this a lot at different aspects, even like with business. It's a much more compassionate state to live in. So people get frustrated when people don't follow other people's agendas.
Yeah. What do you mean you won't do this?
And they get all mad and take it personalized. And I love that about you, Jack, because the message you always carry is some will, some won't, some never, some maybe at another time.
Yeah.
And it leaves this ease and flow to life.
Right on.
So today we're going to go into the Empower 11 meditational moment. Wherever you're at, we're going to close the show out with this meditational moment by asking you to take a few deep breaths in and out and just getting still, because this is so important, that stillness, to really finding that message that belongs to you. So wherever you're at, I invite you into this space. I honor your time.
Today you carry messages with you that you create. These messages are born from the truth of who you are, not from negative experiences of the past, not from what you have been told, not from self-ridicule. Today your messages have meaningful beauty and are gifts for the world. These messages of your finest truths are the ones you share and benefit all that hear and are touched by them. Truth is where your power is. Your messages you carry are full of self-encouragement. You no longer give any weight to unloving, unsupportive messages. You carry messages that are the truth of what you want to carry, and these messages are light. Today, any messages that are heavy, you lay down and no longer will be carried by you. Messages that do not support you on the highest level fade away. Today, on this day, you relinquish all messages that do not serve you. Today, on this day, you no longer carry messages that do not support and empower you. Today, on this day, you speak well to yourself with positive self-dialogue that supports and enriches you. The messages you tell yourself are loving and kind. The voice inside you speaks as your most trusted friend. Being good for others starts with being good to yourself. You love yourself. All love starts from the inside out. Being humble is not to deny your greatness. You are a gift to the world. You have something of real, solid value to offer.
Thank you so much, Jack, for sharing that. The message you carry, that's a little snippet out of a meditational track that Jack is getting ready to record. You listeners, I thank you for taking the time. I honor your presence in this moment in time, and may the message you move forward empower you. See you next week.
Empower 11 Radio.